Have you ever wanted to sit down with a group of Lean UX experts and just soak up their best advice? Well, today I'm sharing innovation tips from Lean UX gurus, people that have helped thousands of customers build better products. And their advice can help you do that too. Welcome to part 3 of our 2019 Innovation Series, where we're sharing our favorite tips and tricks from Game Thinking TV. Earlier in this series, we shared insights from Silicon Valley investors in part 1 and from expert game designers in part 2. Now we're shining a spotlight on Lean UX and sharing insights from people that have helped thousands all over the world apply lean practices to their product development. Let's kick it off with Jeff Patton, a veteran product manager, Lean UX evangelist, and author of the seminal book, User Story Mapping. Jeff has worked with hundreds of product teams, and he can see the patterns that lead to both success and failure. Here, Jeff talks about the power of validating your ideas early with real customers and making sure to test the assumptions that scare you the most.
Just spend more time with your customers, spend more face time with them. For sharp, validated learning cycles, the trick to that is focus. If you've got a product idea, whether it's a whole new product or just a new capability or feature, the first most important thing to do is to come up with the first thing that scares the crap out of you and get out and spend time with people and validate it. And validating may be just talking to people to confirm they actually have the problem you think they do. Validating may be showing the simplest of prototypes, simplest of solutions to validate that you're in the right ballpark. Validated learning isn't deciding on what your big MVP should be and then starting to build it. It's not like Silicon Valley, that HBO show. It's about building lots of small things and doing lots of small things over and over again.
Now, Jeff's passion for validating ideas early comes from his up-close and personal experience with failure. Here, he shares a great story from CarMax about how early testing with customers led to uncovering big flaws in the design, which ultimately saved the company huge amounts of time and money.
You know who CarMax is a big auto retailer. They built this prototype, and I like telling this story because it's a bad story. The minute they put it in front of customers, everything kind of changed. Customers started getting wrapped up in the finance data. They started noticing that the rates they were getting on cars did not match the super low rates they were seeing advertised at banks. Adding this into the experience just took a tough decision and made it even tougher. I tell this story because it was recent, because it was real, and because, look, most of the time we hear fabulous success stories, and what people don't hear is that to get to that success takes lots and lots of failures, or what's interesting, lots of, oh my gosh, I'm glad we did that experiment and learned this wasn't so trivial and wasn't so easy, because we would have spent a ton of money. We would have blown our brains out on this thing.
Next up, we have Cindy Alvarez, author of Lean Customer Development and Group Principal Product Manager at Microsoft. Cindy has deep experience doing customer interviews, and she's learned through this how to control her own biases and steer an interview towards success. Here, Cindy shares how she uses conversational templates to pull out the most useful information from any customer interview.
Typically, one of the things that's been very helpful is to give people a set of conversational templates of how to approach different kinds of feedback. So for example, early stage, you're testing a concept and someone says, you should build this. And that happens to me all the time. I've had people, grab notebooks out of my hand and start sketching the product they want. And it's really tempting to just listen and let them go, kind of down the rat hole on that. And that's the kind of feedback where I'd say, that's really interesting. Tell me more about why this is the product that we should build. What do you think that's going to solve for you? What would you expect it to do for you? Because what they've told you and what they expect don't always align. And sometimes just the act of them retelling the story makes them realize that they don't really want this particular thing.
Because she's a skillful and experienced researcher, Cindy doesn't get hung up on rank ordering games that are often misleading and wrong. Instead, she focuses on a far more effective tactic, getting your customer to describe their process and surface their pain points.
People tend to have a laundry list of things they want, especially in the existing customer space. They're like, these are the 10 things I want. And you can do things like asking them to rate them, or there's some innovation games, things like buy a feature, that kind of forces people to rank their issues. But I find that that's also a little hard to do without being confrontational. It's like, okay, Amy Jo, you asked for these 10 feature improvements, well, which one do you want the most? Because you know that this is a negotiation where you're not going to get everything you want. And so I think it just sets up a bad conversational dynamic where you're not really incented to be honest with me. Whereas if I approach it like, okay, I want to understand all of these, and like, where do these fall into your process? How often does this happen? How hard is your life when this thing comes up? Like, what are we talking about? An hour delay, 20 people dropping everything to fix on something. And when we have that level of conversation, people naturally tend to do that prioritization, and they don't feel like they've been forced to. They're like, well, they'll kind of describe something and say, well, that's really minor compared to this. And then they'll focus on the thing that matters. And that's obviously, we want to solve the problems that matter the most. And so the more we can nudge people to identify that for us, they feel better about it, and we have more reliable info.
Jason Hreha is the former head of behavioral science at Walmart and an experienced product manager. Jason understands all too well the allure of creative ideas. Here's his advice on how to focus on what your customer is already familiar with so you can accurately assess demand.
We humans, we're very good at kind of using things that we're familiar with. We're not, of course, we're not good at using things that we're not familiar with. I had some kind of pretty creative, wild ideas early on during my tenure there. And as we would kind of come up with the designs, and as I would play around or look at the designs and like show them to people and play around with these like cool creative ideas, I got a lot of feedback. People just were obviously very confused when I would do kind of quick user experience or user kind of interviewing sessions. And it became very obvious to me that actually kind of the best way to build the first version of the product was to do some really in-depth research around what are people currently familiar with, what are the popular apps and products out there that they're using, like what are their current habits, like what does their world look like, their mental model, the world look like, and then fit into that, or kind of borrow heavily patterns that are used within the current applications and products that they use and bring those into your product. So a lot of times people have bad UX, bad usability, and they're like, oh, nobody wants our product, we should just pivot and do something completely different. When it's like, well, actually, you use these bizarro kind of design patterns and try to get too creative, when actually for your first version, just do something dead simple that everybody can understand and that everybody understands, so that you can actually understand that you're measuring whether or not you're measuring demand and like whether or not people actually want this thing.
Like Cindy Alvarez, Jason uses customer interviews to focus on problem space and learn about a customer's current issues and pain points. Jason likes to ask himself how a customer scratches an itch or solves the current problem that they're working on.
I have a 3-step kind of user interviewing / user testing plan that I've built out over the years, which is I like to show them the product that I'm working on and just tell them, talk aloud, tell me what's going through your head, and just like with no instruction, just see like how quickly can they grasp what the product does. How obvious is it to them that they can do the different things within the product that I want them to do? How understandable is this thing and the value proposition and how to use it in that first phase? In the second phase, what I like to do is I like to ask them if I'm doing like a usability or user test. I write out all the key tasks that I want people to be able to do within the system. I go down the task list and ask them to do each thing. And that way I can actually create a tally after I talk to, let's say, 10 or 15 people, that this task was the hardest one to do, this one was the next hardest one to do, that one was the next hardest one to do. And then in the third phase, I really like to ask the person that I'm talking with a little bit about kind of this problem space in their life. So let's say I'm building a washing service, like where we come and pick up kind of your laundry, wash it for you, and return it a day later. So I would talk to them about like, cool, like today, like how do you wash your clothes? Like, Nice. Do you live in an apartment building? Like, oh, interesting. Quarters are a pain in the butt. Okay, interesting. And we'll talk to them just about how they scratched that itch today. Because really, for every like significant problem or kind of issue that people have, they're scratching the itch somehow today.
A common and debilitating design myth is the idea that great customer research always surfaces brand new customer insights. Here, expert designers Erika Hall and Laura Klein reveal why this myth needs to be busted and why the true role of great research is to help everyone on the product team develop a shared understanding.
It is incredibly valuable to build that sense of shared understanding with your team and with people who maybe aren't on your immediate team, but who need to be brought in. And so that we all know what the goal is and so that we all know who the user is, because and really what really ends up happening is you find out that you don't all know that, that you all have very different ideas, and then that gives you a chance to coalesce around a specific goal and a specific user and a specific need.
Yeah, because I'll say super quick, the biggest misconception about doing research as part of the design process is that you're doing research to uncover new knowledge. But actually, the most important thing you get out of it is that shared understanding. Like, who cares if you found out something new? Because sometimes clients are like, but everything you said we knew. But it's like, but now you all know it.
All know it. And you all knew a lot of other things too before we did the research, but now you know what's actually important.
Yeah.
And that's it. 7 innovation tips from Lean UX experts. These insights will help you avoid some of the common beginner mistakes that are so easy to make and hard to recover from. I know from my own experience how powerful these insights can be and how much time they can save you. So we've made a cheat sheet to help you put these Lean UX tips to work and build better products. Go to gamethinking.io/Lean UX tips and grab your cheat sheet now. All of the people you've met in this series are Game Thinking VIP experts who support our community through coaching sessions and AMAs. If you enjoyed soaking up their wisdom and you want more exposure to these amazing minds, go to gamethinking.io and join our worldwide community of entrepreneurs and innovators. I'll look forward to seeing you in the new decade.